Miami does it again with a little help from their new best friend.
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a reaction episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view post-early morning window college football viewing. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth, whatever that may be. This episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Indiana looks so incredibly real. I mean, whoo boy. Curt Cignetti is the surprise head coach, and Indiana's the surprise team in the country. I'll talk about that later. Last night, BYU with a great escape. You're welcome, Cougar fans. Some are saying it's because of the influence of this show. But Cam Ward is the influence that is making Miami win. Here he is again, off a bye week, on the road, with another Heisman performance. Over 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, did not turn the football over. Now, when I said in the cold open, Miami got some help from their new best friend, your mind, some of you out there, your mind probably went to the officials, because here we are again, a crucial moment in the game with a big review, and for a third time, it goes in Miami's favor. And everybody out there, not everybody, There are a lot of people who are not going to see it this way, but I know there are plenty of people who do see it this way. And that way is, well, the ACC officials are just helping Miami every chance they get. I think of the 3 calls, the most questionable was the Cal targeting. But you again are presuming the motive is nefarious when the motive is most likely not nefarious, just you don't like the call, you don't like Miami, you want them to lose. You need them to lose for some particular reason, and they just keep on winning. Because was Cam Ward's arm going forward ever so slightly? Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. It wasn't a lot. It was close. Could have gone the other way. But Miami gets a big call. That'll be what people talk about. That's not what I'm mentioning it because I know that'll be a subject of conversation. That is not why I am impressed with Miami after this win. I'm impressed because Cam Ward has put on display an offense that a Mario Cristobal-led team hasn't had before. If you go back to his time at Oregon, the numbers that Justin Herbert, who's now tearing it up in the NFL, put up in those seasons compared to what his full potential was, weren't really good. But Shannon Dawson, the Miami offensive coordinator, is another one of these unsung heroes for the Hurricanes outside of Coral Gables, because I presume Miami fans are aware of how good Shannon Dawson is, but he has maximized Cam Ward's potential. He has unlocked him into the college football player we saw glimpses and stretches of at Washington State, but never sustained success. Now you've given him 3 capable running backs, an elite cadre of wide receivers, and he had those at Washington State, not the running backs part, the receivers part, but he didn't have an offensive line up there, and now he does. And is Miami's defense great? Nope. Allowed a kickoff return for a touchdown, gave up some big plays. Tyler Shuck was really good in this football game. But at the end of the day, Tyler Shuck was going up against a guy who's probably ending the season in New York City for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And the offseason matters. I hope I'm not breaking any news to you there, folks. The offseason matters a whole heck of a lot. And Cam Ward going to Miami, he had a lot of potential suitors. He thought about going to the NFL draft. He is now on track to lead the Hurricanes to the ACC championship game, where they'll probably meet up with Clemson. They're probably meeting up with Clemson, who poured it onto Virginia. Then the Cavaliers scored some points late. Clemson's impressive. Clemson is a better football team than they were a season ago, and they weren't bad last year. But these two teams every single week and every single time they have the opportunity are showing me that they are significantly better than everybody else in the ACC. I had this one flagged as upset potential for Miami in this spot, even though they were off a bye. And I think the way this game played out shows you there was real upset potential. But I thought off a bye, Miami would figure it out. And lo and behold, they did. And when Cam Ward is playing at this level, and they're running for over 200 yards a game on the road against a Louisville team that is playing out about how I thought they would coming into this season, which is a good but not a great team, Miami's just tough to stop. You can score some points on him, but every single time that you throw a punch at Miami, Cam Ward's got the counter. Cal threw a borderline knockout punch, and Cam Ward had the answer. Because when he needs to get down the field, he does. When he needs to run for a first down, he can. When he has to have a quick hitter, he's got the arm talent, the accuracy, the ball placement, everything is there. Is his completion percentage in this game blowing you away? No, he's 21 to 32. But the throws that he can make, the first touchdown Miami scored in this game, that's the sort of play that goes on a Heisman reel. Because he's rolling to his left and he throws it 40, 50 yards, however far it was down the field, and places a dot in the back corner of the end zone to his guy. You can't defend that. And I don't see anybody on Miami's schedule. Allow me to read you the upcoming games for the Miami Hurricanes. They host Florida State. That team stinks. Oh, man. They lost to Duke. That's the second opponent for Miami after this particular win over Louisville. And Duke, pretty solid football team. Malik Murphy, Manny Diaz, couple of newcomers there. Blue Devils look solid. Are they going to beat Miami on the road? I don't think so. At Georgia Tech, Haynes King needs to come back. Wake Forest, I mean, at least they beat UConn. I thought they would, and they found a way to get it done. Good for the Demon Deacons. And at Syracuse. Can Miami fall down and play to the level of their competition in any of those games? Sure. Sure. We've seen it before. But this is a Miami team that continues to look better and better. And Mario Cristobal, the knocks on him from his past years as a head coach, they look, if not all the way rectified, significantly better. Oregon fans will tell you, well, there wasn't a big explosive passing game. They couldn't push it down the field. Do you watch Miami and think they can't push it down the field? Do you watch Miami's offense and think, hey, they're not willing or able to have an explosive passing game to complement the great running game? No. And then you look at the way that they're running the football, and 3 different running backs over 5.5 yards a carry. 3. That offensive line is good. The running backs are good. Receivers are really good. And Cam Ward is more than just the cherry on top. I think he's the 3 scoops of ice cream and the split banana down the middle. The running backs, which have been, kind of the feature of Mario Cristobal-led offense, they have been the sprinkles. They have been the whipped cream on top of the sundae. And if Miami's defense starts to play a little bit better, Hurricanes are dangerous. Because anytime you have Cam Ward, you're never out of a game. And there's no one who's going to, just outscore you or keep your offense completely in check. Miami's point totals this year, 41, 56, 62, 50, 38, 39. And today against Louisville, they go over 50. That's why he's a Heisman Trophy guy. That's why they brought him in. This is how Miami fans wanted it to look. And this is how they've been playing really since the start of the year. And yeah, they've got a couple of breaks. And you know what? Conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat crowd out there, if you think the ACC is conspiring to make Miami really good, then by the time they get to the ACC championship game, they'll get exposed. Or when they get into the college football playoff, somebody will beat them really badly. I don't suspect that that's going to happen because Miami has got a great offense, good enough defense. I'd like to see more on that side of the ball from them. But as it pertains to the ACC, I don't think anybody can keep up with them. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. Speaking of teams that look real, Indiana. Oh, my gosh. I thought they'd beat Nebraska, not thrash them into oblivion. The Hoosiers have to be discussed as a Big Ten title contender. That is coming up next. First, a reminder, this episode brought to you by HIMSHims. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you stop worrying about your performance and get HIMSHims so you can feel confident knowing you will be at your best. HIMSHims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions required online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. hims.com/lockedon. So coming into this year, I liked Nebraska. Didn't think they were ready to be a Big Ten title contender, but thought they'd be an improved team. So far, that's been the case. Indiana made them look not like the Nebraska of old, because that was, losing a one-possession game. Indiana made them look like the Nebraska of nightmares, because 56-7. 56-7. Indiana can do anything they want on offense. Curtis Rourke was under 200 yards passing, yet they had 56 points. Dylan Raiola threw 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions in this game. And yet, Indiana blew them out. And you need to look at Indiana and view them as a team that could wind up playing for a Big Ten Conference championship. Because as I'm recording the show, Michigan is getting underway with Illinois. We'll see how that game goes. I think Illinois is going to win the football game. So when you look at the rest of Indiana's schedule, they host Washington next week. Well, that should be a win. They go at Michigan State. That's a rebuilding team. They host Michigan. They're not as good as we thought. And suddenly November 23rd against Ohio State could be a game that decides who goes to the Big Ten championship. And the tiebreakers in the Big Ten could get really spicy. Because remember, Penn State hasn't lost a game yet. Oregon hasn't lost a game yet. Ohio State's got 1 loss. They still have to play Penn State and Indiana. And they have to play Michigan. You never know, but Ohio State will beat Michigan just fine. And then Indiana hosts Purdue last week, the regular season. Curt Cignetti is currently in the midst of one of the greatest coaching jobs we have seen in recent memory in college football. A comparable one, I'd put Jed Fish at Arizona up there. That was pretty good. What else is comparable here? Indiana has gone in one season from bottom dweller to top of the conference. Is their favorable schedule helping? Yes, but this game against Nebraska was the opportunity for Nebraska to prove, hey, we're in year 2 and you're in year 1 with your staff over there. We're ready for this more than you. Nope. If you play that game 10 times going into this game, I'd probably have said, hey, if you play this game 10 times in Bloomington, Indiana probably wins 6 or 7. I think they win 9 at the very least, maybe even 10. 56-7. Indiana can run the ball. Indiana can play defense. Indiana can throw the ball. Curtis Rourke, how was he playing at a MAC school a year ago? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that particular question. But if you don't look at Indiana, I don't know what else they need to do. I know they haven't played a tough schedule, but listen to their point totals, folks. Nobody else has done this. Tennessee was doing this at the beginning of the year, and many anointed them as an SEC and national title contender. Fairly so. Since getting into conference play, however, playing SEC teams, Tennessee's offense hasn't been the same. We'll see how they do against Alabama. That game also starting as I'm recording the show. Indiana has gone 31-77-42 in their first Big Ten game against UCLA, who, by the way, picked up the first conference win on the road in Piscataway against Rutgers. Disappointing day for Greg Schiano and company. They fall to 4-3, but the Bruins of UCLA, 2-5. Good for Deshaun Foster. Charlotte, 52 points. Maryland, 42 points. Northwestern, 41 points on the road. Nebraska, 56 points. The offense is electric. Curt Cignetti is a guy whose record should remind you a lot of Kalen DeBoer. He's got about a 4-to-1 win-to-loss ratio in his coaching career. He was at Elon, he was at James Madison, now he's at Indiana. And this is a great reminder. Whenever a coaching job like this comes available, there's plenty of discussion about, well, it's not a great job. Well, it's not that. Well, it's not that. They haven't been able to do X, Y, and Z. And though that's often true, hence the need for a new head coach, any program at the power level, any program, is one right hire away from being at least more respectable very, very quickly. When Jed Fish got to Arizona, he had a program that had lost 12 straight games. By the time he left, conference title contender. They pushed for it. They almost beat USC on the road. Should have beaten USC on the road. They did have a 10-win season in a year where their preseason win total on FanDuel was 4.5. That's what Curt Cignetti is doing right now in Bloomington. His team is steamrolling everyone they play. And you can say, well, they haven't played a great team yet. No, but they just played a good team. Nebraska, make no mistake about it, is a good team, and they didn't just beat them. They pounded them into the turf. I mean, boxer style, or like Roy Kent beating a bully in his dreams in Ted Lasso, where you just beat them over and over and that's what Indiana did here, and that's what a really good team does. So that the rest of their schedule, it's tougher than the first half. Washington's solid. Michigan State's okay. Michigan's okay. Ohio State's really good. You got to play them on the road. And then it's Purdue, who, tough times for Ryan Walters and company. Indiana's impressive. Really, really impressive. Speaking of impressive, how about Brady Cook in Missouri? I mean, why did they come back to win that football game? Why? Well, Auburn seems dead set on just not winning close games the entire season. By the way, Army and Navy. As I record this, Navy's up 21-0 in the first quarter. Army is up, Army got the win because their offenses are explosive. Just your G5 playoff check-in, as always on the show. Missouri, Vegas is goated. They favored the Tigers by 4.5. They win 21-17. A 15-0 run by Missouri in the fourth quarter. Brady Cook goes down. You think he's not there. Drew Pine's throwing the ball. That's not very impressive. And Brady Cook shows some gusto to keep the playoff hopes alive for the Missouri Tigers. Because if you lost that one, it wasn't going to happen. Now, Missouri, playoff team, still possible. Still out there. I don't think they're that good of a football team, but they're not a bad one. And their schedule, like Indiana's, incredibly favorable. So, a lot of stuff happened in the early window. Still a bunch of great games to play later today, and including ongoing, as I mentioned, that I'm going to watch once I hop off here and finish recording the show. But I do want to talk about the Gamecocks, because South Carolina, you talk about teams that are almost good. South Carolina is a solid team. They're not a great one. They could have had a great season. They went into Norman and blew out Oklahoma, who have no idea what to do at quarterback, who look inept on offense with both guys there. I think Oklahoma will go shopping in the transfer portal this offseason for a new signal caller for 2025. And with every loss that looks like that for Oklahoma after losing to Texas 34-3, now, Oklahoma fans told me they were ready for the SEC. They are not. Doesn't mean they never will be. Just means right now they are definitely not. And that starts with the quarterback position. I don't know what the temperature on Brent Venables' seat is. They extended him before the season, so it's probably not that hot. Brent Venables' agent probably kicking back, drinking a mimosa and thinking, good thing I got that extension done. Let me read you the rest of Oklahoma's schedule this year. They go at Ole Miss. That's a loss. They host Maine. All right, they'll get a win. Congratulations with the SEC cupcake. At Missouri. I mean, they could win that game, but they have to, score touchdowns, and that's a difficult thing for the Sooners to do at the moment. Host Alabama at LSU. That's a loss and a couple of losses. So Oklahoma, who have already managed to put up 3 losses on the year, are going to lose at least 2 more. Probably not the first season Sooner fans were hoping for. But that offense, yikes. Lost their offensive coordinator, lost their quarterback, lost their offensive line. It turns out that a reset year was probably always in the cards. And I had Oklahoma, about a 7-win team this season. That's about what they look like. But I didn't think it would look this bad. I thought South Carolina would go in there, win the football game. I didn't think it would look like that. Not a great look for the Sooners. Doesn't mean that all hope is lost forever and always. It just means that for this season, Yeah, you can have some stress-free Saturdays because, well, Oklahoma's not going to give you anything there. But Missouri, what a comeback win. And Auburn, oh boy, tough times continue. Might talk about that more next week here on the show. Got thoughts? Got questions, comments, concerns, statements of outrage? By all means, drop them in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. Got to talk about what happened last night in Provo, Utah. Oh, man. Jake Retzlaff isn't great, but he is at the same time. That is coming up next. First, a reminder, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. Do you want to bet college football? Do you look at all this craziness and say, I want some juice, I want some action, give me some spice, a little pizzazz? Then that is where you go and do it, because they've got money lines, of course. They've got point spreads. They've got changing odds. They've got conference title odds, Heisman odds. Do you think Ashton Genty's locked into the Heisman Trophy? Go bet it over at FanDuel. Do you think somebody else is going to win? Go bet it over at FanDuel. Whatever you want, check out America's #1 sportsbook at FanDuel.com. Much like the U.S. government puts its full faith and credit behind the dollar, I'd like to put my full faith and credit into last night's win for BYU. What a scene in Provo. What a game. And Jake Retzlaff, look, he wasn't great in this football game. The numbers, they're not blowing you away. Oklahoma State put up more points than anybody thought they would. They were rotating quarterbacks because Rangel got injured and Alan Bowman had to return and made some throws. And, well, you know, it wasn't a great day for Oklahoma State throwing the ball. They finally figured out how to run it. And against this Jay Hill coordinated and Kalani Sitake defense, that's been a tough thing to do. Credit Oklahoma State, but credit Jake Retzlaff. Finishes the game 13 of 26 for 218 yards and 2 touchdowns, but all that mattered was the 4th and 7 conversion to Chase Roberts. And then later, the 50-yard touchdown to Darius Lassiter. I tell you what. Jake Retzlaff showed 35-yard touchdown. 35-yard touchdown to Darius Lassiter. He showed some sort of gusto in this football game because BYU had a 4th and 7 on their own side of the 35-yard line, trailing by 4, and they end up winning the game? I mean, you got to have some stones. And I was not high on Jake Retzlaff coming into the year because what did I have to be impressed with? Remember that BYU once upon a time went on the road and beat this team that also has a 3-letter abbreviation. It's called SMU. They beat them on the road 18-15 back in week 2. That was after our impressions of SMU were, oh, they almost lost to Nevada. They're not at. SMU is currently a top 25 team in college football, according to the AP poll. They figured out the quarterback situation. So that win is holding up incredibly well. And then you have the fact that BYU, in a crazy game, thrashed Kansas State, beat Arizona by 22, finds a way to beat Oklahoma State. And yeah, BYU, I've been aboard this train for all of 10 days now. And let me tell you, it is chugging along the tracks to a Big 12 championship game berth. BYU's remaining schedule: at UCF, disappointing team. At Utah, oh man. November 9th is going to be a heck of a scene. A heck of a scene. Then they host Kansas, at Arizona State, and host Houston. Which of those games do you think BYU is going to be an underdog in? Probably at Utah. I imagine on the road, there'll still be a slight underdog at Utah, even though Isaac Wilson is, or whoever Utah's rolling out at quarterback, I don't know. It's not Cam Rising, and that makes Utah a pretty weak offense. Who are they going to be an underdog against? I don't think any of the other games. BYU's just finding a way. They're not blowing you away with box scores. They're not blowing you away with the flashy, explosive, dynamic offense. No, they're just playing good football. They're just winning football games. And Jake Retzlaff, he's not the best quarterback in the Big 12. I don't even think he's in the top 5. But he showed something on that drive in front of all those fans anxiously awaiting. You could have cut the tension with a rusty butter knife in that stadium because of the opportunity that had been presented to him. halfway through the regular season, undefeated. Oklahoma State is struggling. And are we gonna do this? Nope, Jake Retzlaff's got you. March you right down the field and get into the end zone. One heck of a drive for the BYU Cougars. And it keeps their undefeated season alive right now. And, I mean, I'm just saying, do they win all 5 of those games? Probably not. If Sam Leavitt is back by the time they play Arizona State on November 23rd, that's a game BYU could absolutely lose, because with Sam Leavitt, Arizona State, good football team. Without him, not as good of a football team. They lost today against Cincinnati. I'll get to that in just a moment. But BYU looks like they are locked in for a 10-plus win season. I cannot see them losing 3 of their next 5 games. And Kalani Sitake and company have done a heck of a job. And Jay Hill, the defense coordinator, didn't have his best day. But when the offense is able to bail you out, that goes against what my initial concern was with BYU when they beat Kansas State, which was, hold up, yeah, they played good defense, but they only moved the ball with a bunch of special teams craziness, and like it was just a wild, hectic night game at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, and so was this one. But then you look at the offensive numbers, and they're over 30 points in each of their last 5 games. Since the offensive struggles, shall we say, at SMU, a game in which they found a way to win, BYU is showing you they can win a shootout, they can win something in between, like Baylor 34-28, or they can win a slugfest like SMU 18-15. They're just playing winning football. That's the best thing you can say about BYU right now, is they're winning. They're just finding a way. It looks a little bit different every week. It certainly looked different last night against Oklahoma State, but they found a way to win the football game. So I salute them, and BYU fans, you are welcome, and our arrangement shall indeed continue. Elsewhere in the Big 12, Cincinnati, I tell you what, Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 and myself, neither one of us were high on Cincinnati coming into the year. I thought their preseason win total was a little bit high. I wasn't really impressed with them last year. I didn't know that they were going to be a different team this year. Well, all of a sudden, Cincinnati, after beating Arizona State, who admittedly were starting Jeff Sims, they again, I don't know that Cincinnati is great, but at the very least, they're going to make a bowl game this year, and that's a step forward. You're not removing Scott Satterfield after this particular season. You have Colorado on the road next week, then West Virginia, at Iowa State, at Kansas State, host TCU. They're probably going to lose more of those games than they will win, but Cincinnati's having, quietly, a very nice second season in the Big 12. They're 5-2. They're 3-1 in conference play at the moment, and by the way, that lone conference loss was to someone that many, myself included, view as a Big 12 championship-capable team in Texas Tech on the road by 3 points. That's a coin flip, go either way game. So I'm impressed with the Bearcats. I'm impressed with the Bearcats, and I'm not putting them into that top tier of Big 12 teams like BYU, Iowa State, Texas Tech, who I think can win the Big 12. Kansas State is in that conversation as well. But I'm also not putting them as a bottom dweller. I'm not putting them as a head coaching vacancy that's going to come open in the offseason. This is just a quietly nice year. And while I was talking about BYU in the Big 12, I thought, you know what? That's a really solid win for Cincinnati. A game you should win. Jeff Sims is starting at quarterback on the other side. Gosh, I hope you win the football game, because I watched Jeff Sims playing. Arizona State needs to get Sam Leavitt back. Their bye week for Kenny Dillingham and company is coming at a really, really good time, because Leavitt was a 2 to 4 week injury. If he's back in a couple of weeks, he could only miss 1 game. He could miss a couple more games. Just kind of depends. But if Arizona State gets Sam Leavitt back at quarterback, remember, they already beat Utah. I think they could beat anybody in this conference. They could lose to anybody in this conference if Jeff Sims is there at quarterback, and heck, maybe even when Sam Leavitt is there. But if Sam Leavitt returns as the quarterback for Arizona State at some point this year, they can win games that before the season, many of you would have thought, they're not winning that football game, or they're not capable of beating this team. Well, I think Arizona State's pretty darn good. But Cincinnati, impressive. I salute the Bearcats. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.